VTubing is complicated. Personally, I have like 7 or 8 apps open to run a stream, and every individual app has its own internal control, like changing scenes in OBS, adjusting my audio in Wavelink, or pressing hotkeys in Vtube Studio. But I have this device on my desk here called a Stream Deck, and this thing can pretty much join all of my software together. You can add close to anything onto these keys, including the stuff that I just mentioned, but also whatever else you can think of, like automating opening apps up, or muting your mic, or toggling special effects. There are plugins for tons of apps, so it's great for productivity too. But we're going to be talking about this from the perspective of a VTuber today, so let's just set it up and I'll show you what kinds of things you can add onto your Stream Deck and how it all works. First of all, you need a Stream Deck. I mean, it's kind of a given. I have the most premium model myself, which 𝗦𝘂𝗽𝗽𝗍 kindly sent my way, so thank you so much to 𝗦𝘂𝗽𝗽 for that. But you guys don't need the most premium model, and they actually start at $60 USD. So there's a Stream Deck in pretty much any budget range. And you might be thinking, well, 36 keys and 6 knobs versus only 6 keys. I mean, that's a huge difference. And don't get me wrong, it totally is. But also, you can add additional pages to your Stream Deck. So the 6-key Stream Deck can actually hold far more than just 6 keys. Plus, all Stream Decks have access to the virtual Stream Deck, which lets you pull up additional on-screen hotkeys. So if you can't make this price work, you could maybe be able to make this one work and then just supplement the limited amount of keys with virtual hotkeys to get all of your needs covered. I'll leave a link below for all of these products, and I get a portion of the sale if you use my link, use my code to save money, you know, all that stuff. Once you have a Stream Deck though, you're gonna need to grab the Stream Deck app. Just grab it from the 𝗦𝘂𝗽𝗽 website and go through the installation process before opening up the app. First of all, let's talk plugins. The plugins tab over here will have some recommended plugins, and you can search up here and easily install directly from here by hitting the get button. Some of them you do have to pay for, but the ones that we'll be talking about today are all entirely free. And if you're feeling especially curious, you can go into the 𝗦𝘂𝗽𝗽 marketplace directly from this button up here, and then you can browse plugins and also like VST plugins for your audio devices and stuff like that. Now, like I said before, I'm going to be explaining this guide from the perspective of a VTuber, specifically a 2D VTuber, because I'm 2D, and I personally use Vtube Studio and OBS to stream. If you're a 3D VTuber or a PNG tuber, there are plugins for both 𝗦𝘂𝗽𝗽 and Vtube as well. But I'm not going to be talking about those today because I'm not a VTuber that uses those. And if you use something aside from those two as well, or something entirely obscure, as long as it's got some sort of API or some sort of WebSocket client, you can probably link it up with Streamer.bot, and there is a Streamer.bot plugin. So if you can do it in Streamer.bot, you can do it in Stream Deck. I'll talk more about Streamer.bot in a bit though. The absolute minimum I recommend for you to grab is going to be OBS, Twitch, and Vtube Studio if you're 2D. If you're using Wavelink to control your audio, I also recommend grabbing the Wavelink plugin. And depending on whether or not you use a bot to stream or control your model, I'd also grab your bot's plugin as well. I personally use Streamer.bot, but Mix It Up does have a plugin too. I won't be covering Mix It Up though, it's just because I'm not familiar with it, and any of the things that I talk about in regards to Streamer.bot can probably apply to Mix It Up as well. You'll just have to kind of figure out how it works in Mix It Up. Once your plugins are all downloaded and ready to go, we can start adjusting our Stream Deck profile. You'll probably be on a default profile to start, so you can just use that one, and if you want, you can open up the profile settings and rename it. You can make multiple profiles, so if you want to have a productivity profile where all of your Photoshop and video editing stuff is, and have that be separate from your streaming profile, that's totally an option. Once your profile is set up though, you can pretty much drag and drop any of these key options over here in the Keys tab and start using them. If you want to change the icon for them, you can do so here. And you can select any number of the pre-made icons, or you can import your own from a file. There are icon sets available on the marketplace as well. Some are free and some are paid. And there's even an icon maker tool provided by 𝗦𝘂𝗽𝗽 as well. So maybe I can do a separate video on icons at some point if that's something you guys want. If you have a smaller 6-key Stream Deck and you want to use Virtual Stream Deck, or if you just want to use Virtual Stream Deck at all, you can select the devices list and add a new Virtual Stream Deck here. You can add however many rows and columns here and adjust some of the options for aesthetic, like the background and the opacity. You can also choose whether empty keys should be hidden or not, and up here you can decide whether or not you want it to spawn in the same place every time, which you can adjust by just left clicking and dragging the Stream Deck to where you want it, or you can have it spawn exactly where your mouse is every time that you use your hotkey. And speaking of the hotkey, all you have to do is click up here and record your strokes, and then you can go ahead and start using it. But let's go ahead and swap back to our main device and start working there. For navigation, if you don't have a Stream Deck Plus, you will need to either add folders or add page flipping keys to swap between pages. I do think if you add pages, it should automatically generate the page flipping keys though. But that means that you do have to somewhat sacrifice real estate to help with navigation. So for example, a 6-key Stream Deck is actually 4 keys because 2 will be used for navigation. That's why the Stream Decks with a larger amount of keys and the 2 different kinds of Stream Deck Pluses are great for VTubers with tons of keys. And that's also why having a virtual Stream Deck is so beneficial for the smaller Stream Decks. As far as what to add though, it's pretty overwhelming to see all of your options over here, so I'll try to break this down into sections and just give you a breakdown of what I might recommend you adding. So let's just start with OBS. Be sure that your OBS is actually open so that it will properly connect, and then we can drag over a scene key and drop it into position. It should automatically connect with your OBS, and you can use the drop down here to select the scene that you want. I recommend you make a hotkey for each scene in your OBS so it's easy for you to swap between them, especially when you're live. If you record a lot of content, you can add in a single button press to record here, and you can even add in a button to start and end your streams as well. There's also a screenshot button, which is really convenient if something funny happens on stream and you want to just grab a quick screen cap of it. You can control OBS filters from Stream Deck as well. So if you have something like a special effect filter on your VTuber model, you can toggle that on and off using Stream Deck. And if it's more than one filter that you want to change at the same time, you can use a multi-action instead, but we will also be talking about multi-actions later in the video. If you anticipate having to walk away from stream, but don't want to use your BRB screen, like maybe you're just taking a phone call and you don't want your tracking to look weird, it might be worth adding a source visibility key for your VTuber model. So you don't have to worry about any weird tracking issues and you can just temporarily turn off your model. Speaking about BRB screens though, now might be a good time to talk about audio, since most of us are going to be muted for a BRB screen. You can control audio sources individually in OBS using Stream Deck, but I think this is way more straightforward to do using Elgato Wavelink. It's basically a free app that just lets you join all of your audio in one place, and it's got a plugin that makes it super easy to control with Stream Deck. And if you want a tutorial on how to set up the app and how it works, I'll leave a link in the description. The most obvious thing to add here is a mic mute, and if you have a Wave device, you probably have the capacitive mute feature, which means you can just swipe your mic and it should mute, but in a pinch, you can also just toggle your mute on your Stream Deck or even adjust your gain using this button. If you don't have an Elgato mic, you can still add a mic mute button though. All you have to do is add your mic into a Wavelink channel, and then you would use a channel level key to mute the entire channel. Channel control is best achieved using the dials on a Stream Deck Plus or Stream Deck Plus XL though. You can drop a channel in here and then use the knob to directly control the audio level. You can also press it in to mute or tap the screen, and it'll completely cut off the audio on a master level. The coolest thing with Stream Deck and Wavelink combined though is that you can control these as a master volume or per mix. So for example, let's say I wanted my game volume pretty loud, but it's too loud for chat. I don't want to use my master control because it'll turn it down for both of us, and I want it loud. So I could use something like a dial stack and be able to cycle between the master volume, what I hear, and what chat hears. And I can easily turn it down for only chat, but not myself. Or I could even completely mute it for chat, but not for myself. It's really versatile for audio control, and that's one of the many great things about the dials. But if you don't have dials, you can still do this with keys. It's just a little more complicated. It also takes 2 keys instead of 1, but you know, like I said, it's still possible, so it's a good thing to have. You'll just drag in the channel level keys and then swap them over to adjust, and then select either vertical or horizontal fader. Set one of them to a positive adjustment and one of them to a negative adjustment, and you'll have both halves ready to go. You can, of course, also have these set for master volume or a specific mix volume, but if you want to replicate the equivalent of a dial stack for your 3 different volume controls, master audio, and your stream, you'll have to eat up 6 keys, which is kind of a lot. Again, if you're limited with keys, you could still use a virtual Stream Deck to pull this off, although I feel like alt-tabbing at that point might make more sense. It's up to you though, you have free will. We should also talk about Twitch keys. Twitch keys are really helpful if you stream, and so I recommend recommend, in particular, adding some safety options like throwing shield mode on there, slow chat, emote chat, or even sub or follow chat modes. Once you add these in, you can select on the account and it will open up a browser window for you to link your Twitch account in. There's also some utility stuff for Twitch as well. You can have your live view count, you can have prepared messages ready to send that all you have to do is press a button and they'll get sent out into your channel, either by you or your bot. And there's even a key for just opening up your dashboard. There's also keys for adjusting stream categories, so you can easily swap to one of your currently streamed categories without having to manually type it in or have a mod do it for you. Let's talk about Vtube Studio next. Vtube Studio has a dedicated plugin made by 𝗬𝗫, and it's got all your most basic actions in here. Once installed, you do need to do an extra step and go into Vtube Studio, turn on your API if it isn't already, and then approve Stream Deck for API access. If you want to move your model, you can add the model move key in and then manually choose what you want your size and position to be. But I find it easiest to manually move my model inside of Vtube Studio and then go to the Options tab and record my current position. I recommend making a model movement key for your just chatting screen, gaming screen, both left and right, and then maybe like a silly zoom in as well. If you have Stream Deck plus dials, you can also add these movement options onto dials, which lets you fine tune your X location, your Y location, as well as your zoom. It's really great for avoiding an alt tab when gaming to make sure that your model is positioned correctly. There are a few utility options like swapping between your models or reloading your model if you want to add those in. But the main thing that you're going to want to be using is, of course, the trigger hotkey button. This will allow you to select any of your Vtube Studio hotkeys to run with a key press. And this includes model toggles, scene lighting, art mesh recolors, item scenes, triggering animations, and pretty much every single thing that's listed under the hotkeys section inside of Vtube Studio. It's pretty time consuming to do, but you can go through and add every single one of your hotkeys in here. With the dials, you can also add things like cycling hotkeys for things you maybe don't use as often, which will save you some real estate on your primary keys. I use these for my gloves, shoes, and knee pads because they're not really important toggles and I'm not always messing with them. But if I need them in a pinch, they're still there. However, if you use Vtube Studio hotkeys, you do need to have the actual hotkey made inside of the Vtube Studio app. If you don't know how to do that or how Vtube Studio even works or how hotkeys work, I do have a master guide on that app that I'll also link down below. Just skip to the hotkeys part. I personally have so many expressions that I don't want them clogging my Vtube Studio hotkey menu. And that's where Streamer.bot comes in handy for me, because I can just send the clutter there instead of in this menu. And that's because Streamer.bot lets you control your model based on expressions, not hotkeys. So you don't need to make the actual hotkey in Vtube Studio for them to run. As long as the expression file is in your model folder, it'll work. So I basically make an action in Streamer.bot, set the sub action to run a Vtube Studio expression, and then set the expression toggle to on or off or toggle. And then I'll add a Stream Deck action key and have it run that particular action instead. And that way I don't need to manage any of those hotkeys in Vtube Studio except the ones that control animations or effects. It just helps me declutter a little bit, but there's also an added benefit as well because Streamer.bot allows me to include logic in my hotkeys. For example, I have 3 different hair toggles: my regular hair, half up hair, and my bun. And if I have the bun toggled on, when I swap hair, I really want it to turn off the bun before it turns off the other hair, because I don't want to have a bunch of random hotkeys just toggled on accidentally in the background. It can cause compatibility issues with other toggles, and I just don't want to deal with that. So I have some C# code that knows to cycle between the 3 of those, and it'll make sure to turn off the previous expression before turning on the new one. So I can press this button as many times as I want, and it'll make sure to always cycle through those same 3 hairstyles in the same order. I'm working on a Streamer.bot tutorial, and I'll probably cover stuff like this in that video, so if you have any questions about this weird, complicated stuff, feel free to leave them down below, and I'll try to answer them in that video. Streamer.bot can also link up to a number of other things like Twitch integrated throwing system, which means you can use Streamer.bot to add support for throwing stuff at your model without it actually having a dedicated Stream Deck plugin. You would just make an action for that particular integration, and then use the action key to execute it in Stream Deck. This is the same for any other integrations in Streamer.bot, so if you need a bit of logic incorporated in your key presses, that's a good way to do it. If you don't want to get involved with Streamer.bot though, another way to add logic into your Stream Deck is to use multi-actions. This lets you stack any of those keys that we've previously talked about into a single key press. For example, if I want to swap OBS scenes, my model might not be sized right when I arrive at the new scene. So I can make a multi-action that will swap OBS scenes and also resize my model. You can develop entire sequences of actions using this, so definitely get creative. And there's also key logic itself, which lets you have separate actions for a single key press, a double key press, or for holding the key. So there's tons of different configuration options that you can choose from to meet your specific needs. Overall, my Stream Deck is pretty much a necessity for me as a VTuber and helps me feel in control, helps me limit the amount of stress that I have during streams, and I just can't recommend them enough. Again, if you want to pick one up, I'll leave links in the description. Don't forget to use my code to save money, and again, thank you, 𝗦𝘂𝗽𝗽, for sending me my Stream Deck Plus XL. I hope this video helped you get your Stream Deck set up, so let me know if you have any other Stream Deck questions, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!